Welcome to our weekly meditation at it's not quite the end of Lent, but the last week of Lent as we move into Holy Week. And as we enter these few days leading up to Easter, just reminding ourselves firstly of the sequence, or the rough sequence of some of the events of those few days, and how we might be guided through these in our own faith journeys. I'm particularly thinking of this as a downwards movement and an upwards movement. So yesterday was Palm Sunday, and that would have been a very heady day, I think, and very charged and joyful, and people shouting Hosanna, meaning save us now. And on Monday, on the day after, because I'm not really sure which days of the week these were, but the day after, Jesus deliberately enters the temple and overturns the tables, making a very clear and provocative statement. The following day, it's recorded, they arrived again in Jerusalem, facing challenge from the teachers of the law, and it may have taken a lot of hours there, I think. And then possibly that day in the evening in Bethany, in the house, being anointed with costly oil. Somewhere along the way, Judas agrees to betray Jesus. And then back into Jerusalem and sharing in the last Passover, Garden of Gethsemane, and arrest. And then on what we call Good Friday, the day before the Sabbath, trial and crucifixion. And on the Sunday, resurrection. An up, a down, and an up. And so as we allow some of these thoughts and images to impact on us, let's bring our focus, as usual, to our breathing and to where we're sitting or lying in the room, bringing our focus to ourselves and taking 3 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with that idea of up and down, connecting to our physical self and noticing the up, the rise, and the fall of the body, of the stomach with our breathing. Rise on the in-breath through the nose and fall on the out-breath through the mouth. Just relaxing into that rhythm. Now try to consciously lengthen and deepen those breaths, perhaps being able to go up to a count of 4 on the in-breath, and holding, and a count of perhaps 5 on the out-breath. And we're going to add in some music this time. We're going to use Jesus, Remember Me. And maybe we can combine this with the breath. Maybe Jesus, remember me on the in-breath, and when you come into your kingdom on the out-breath. Or if that's too much, perhaps just Jesus on the in-breath and remember me on the out-breath. Maybe you can just continue quietly with your breathing to repeat that mantra. Jesus, remember me on the in-breath. And when you come into your kingdom on the out-breath. I think that idea of up and down and up again, ascent, descent, ascent, is mirrored in a wider divine narrative. Paul in Philippians 2 writes, "Who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness." So if Jesus is right, then God, the divine, has descended, has chosen to descend. And further, Jesus leaves the ascent part, the rise to God, in God's time. As with so much, isn't this just the opposite of our human way of looking at things? What we call, theological terms, kenosis or emptying. with the incarnation, and finally ending with the crucifixion. Total commitment to moving down into the enfleshment of creation, into humanity's very sadness and depth, identifying with those who are the least, taking the very nature of a servant. Total solidarity with the human condition. And then 3 verses later, because of this, God lifted him up. That ascending, lifting up, resurrection. And here we can hope that this is a blueprint, a pattern of divine transformation that we too will experience. And so briefly back to the breath, the in and out of our breathing, the up and down of the body, and a couple of minutes of silence just to think and focus on what descent might mean, what solidarity with the least might mean for us. But this is all very well in theory, to trust the down and let God take care of the up. But when that journey of transformation really does involve death and suffering, then I think we all struggle. Death has come to be seen as almost the enemy of humanity, a taboo subject to avoid, delay, deny. Ironically, perhaps, it's people who touch upon real life are the ones who can also let go of it, whereas the ones who've not yet begun to live fear death the most. It's now 5 years since the COVID pandemic, and there have been further tragedies and crises since. Perhaps we feel things should not be this way. The reality, of course, is that things are and always have been this way. Suffering, illness, and death are nothing new. The Buddhists have an approach to suffering which is through detachment. But a legend here is instructive. A woman who sought out the Buddha after losing her baby to illness. She asked him for medicine to bring him back from the dead. He replied that he would give her this medicine if she brought him a white mustard seed from the house of a family that had never experienced death. The woman went from door to door searching for a family untouched by the loss of a loved one. And of course, she could never find such a family. She realized that death touches everyone. And in realizing the universal nature of death, grief, and suffering, her own suffering lessened. So being in solidarity with that life cycle and with one another, following Jesus, the downs and the ups, accepting suffering and expecting transformation. Trust the down and God will take care of the up. And so we'll go to our longer silence again with Taizé chant, the Taizé chant, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And we use the silence as works best for us, using those words perhaps as a mantra, using the image on the screen, focusing on our breathing, being the observer of our own thoughts and feelings. And so coming out of our silence, and some further words from the hymn that we used last week. Will you use your voice? Will you not sit down when the multitudes are silent? Will you make a choice to stand your ground when the crowds are turning violent? This sounds quite similar to 2,000 years ago in some ways. In your city streets, will you be God's heart? Will you listen to the voiceless? Will you stop and eat? And when friendships start, will you share your faith with the faithless? We will walk the path that will cost us much and embrace God's love and sorrow. We will trust in one who entrusts to us the disciples of tomorrow. God of peace, of calm, of the still small voice, help us to silence the noise, the clamour, the baying all around, and encounter you, servant, suffering God, in the moment, in both the joy and anguish, the celebration and the threat, the ups and the downs, that we may truly know you as you truly know us. Amen.